morning, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order. It's Friday, March 8, 2019, 10 a.m. agenda meeting. I'd like Mr. B to say the prayer, Mr. Darrell to say the pledge. Please stand. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please recite the Lord's Prayer.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
All right, good morning, everybody. We'll get started right here with the administrative report, which is, I guess, congratulations to him for his big win. I think everybody's real proud of him. That means keep it down a little bit, don't go too long.
You're not in session yet.
Yeah, let's talk to us too long.
Technically, you still have to listen to me at least one more time. So, no, I'll be brief because we have other items on the agenda that we'll discuss. And there'll be a time and a place for some other comments if the chairman will allow me to. You know, one thing for sure that we've seen since our last meeting, it looks as though Venture has a lot of their pieces falling into place for their project. You know, we started discussions on that project back in June of 2014. And from that day forward, we have had a somewhat slow progression at times, but, you know, we made some strides and worked through what we thought were some issues with the project and its impacts to some community amenities. It looks as though Kiewit is beginning to make their logistical plans to have equipment and so forth brought to the site. And in fact, on Tuesday, the United States Department of Energy approved Venture's permit to trade and or export liquefied natural gas to all non-free trade countries. And so the free trade countries were one thing, but now all non-free trade countries, that approval is in hand. And also FERC, once their order had been issued, FERC has a review of what the company considers their implementation plan. When are we going to start doing this? When are we going to start doing that? And FERC actually approved their implementation plan for site work to commence at the project site. And so that approval has been granted also. The estimates that we are hearing in the next couple of weeks, you'll see a little bit more activity out there. On jumping across the river for Commonwealth, you know, they have come about and gotten reorganized here lately and turned in a lot of their draft resource reports to FERC. And there was a Reuters report out just last week, I believe, that stated that Commonwealth had sold nearly 50% of their offtake agreements were under commitments. And so that is and then those are to European countries. And so they are scheduled to have their formal application submitted to FERC in the next couple of months for them to begin reviewing. But again, it looks as though there are some milestones being met with that project. And finally, on February 19th, we participated in a 5-parish briefing on the Mermentau River watershed. You know, it has been well discussed in this body, the issues that we experience from time to time in trying to drain 9 civil parishes through the mouth of the Mermentau River. And so this meeting was pulled together in preparation for some funds that we anticipate will be available through what is considered the Louisiana Watershed Initiative. This meeting had jurors and staffs and drainage boards from Evangeline Parish down to Cameron that were involved. And I think that we are very proud to say that when the discussion began about how do we fix some of these issues, things that you all have supported in the past and you all have discussed in the past rose to the top of the list of priority. Even to the point where it seems as though people understand that unless we increase the outflow to the Gulf, people north of us are not going to be able to drain as fast as they would like to. So if our infrastructure is not taken care of down here, they're not going to see the benefits of whatever they put in place further to our north. So this is an ongoing effort. We are waiting for HUD in DC to put out an action plan which says how we are allowed to spend the money. And it looks as though out of a $100 million initial pot, $40 million of that is going to be spread equally across the state. And so we are going to have some money, don't know how much, and again, still waiting to hear what those eligible projects are. But what I wanted the jury to know is that we will have to continue to be involved in this process with all these other parishes. The meeting was great. It lasted about an hour, hour and a half. Not a lot of arguing, a lot of people focused on how do we get the improvements that we need to help everybody. And with that, I'll entertain any questions.
Steve, you ready?
We'll get to that. Don't get ahead of me. Yeah.
All right, no questions? All right, let's move on to number 4, Mr. Randy Goodlow, project update on the Cameron Courthouse and Cameron Fisheries.
Starting with the fisheries project, the refrigerated space contract, the panels are installed. We're waiting the contractor's punch list so we can then go out and make our punch list on some of those items. There's some electrical time in this contract for connecting new equipment that will quite possibly remain open until all the equipment that we have received gets assembled so they can then put the electrical together on that. The pneumatic ice conveyor, the bid is in, it's in the budget, right at $129,000. We sent a letter of recommendation to Daryl and Richard Benville, and we're waiting on Mr. Benville's office to issue a notice so we can write a contract and get that going. Equipment contracts, the platform scales, there's a couple of things just hadn't been received. The platform scale, it hadn't been received yet as far as shipping. The totes were asked, they were asked to leave at the manufacturers for storage until they have things at the site to where they can store those.
We have some of them in,
Yeah, so
they're
okay.
located at the Cameron barn.
Good, okay.
Storage.
And the other equipment, the contractor is inventorying and assembling and verifying that all the parts and pieces are in, and we should have an update on that next week. The future things that we're going to have to make the facility operational, and there's really 3 items. The wastewater, which is going to really be a DHH concern, which we talked with them, with the original proposed tenant, and it has to do with not so much sewage waste, it has to do with the product waste from the processing. And that's been initially reviewed by Robert Basson with DHH, but that's one thing that's going to have to get put in place. The HVAC, both for the offices and the processing area. And the questions there with losing the tenant that we had before with Cameron Fisheries. There's some questions about the process, temperatures that a future tenant may need. Daryl's gotten with a consultant that could answer some of those questions for us, since we don't have Cameron Fisheries to do that for us now. So those two HVAC, the office design is not really having anything to do with, it's the process design. We need some answers on what level that of temperature we're gonna probably have to maintain given what tenant goes in there. Any questions on Cameron Fisheries before I go to the courthouse?
Let me address a couple of things, Randy, that you brought up. In regard to the wastewater permit, I'll be meeting, Robin Basone is a contractor who was working with Cameron Fisheries to do a permit application with the DEQ. I'm meeting with her next week to see, get a status of what that was doing, and, to inquire about, enlisting her help to complete that permit. And in reference to the consultant, this past week, we met with Mr. Don Schwab. He is in New Orleans. He's in the seafood processing business. He has started up and built a couple of processing plants. He came down and toured the facility. Mr. Doxey was there with me, and he's impressed. He thinks it's a good facility. He was really positive about it. He sent me an initial list of just concerns, things that thinks is needed to really complete this. I will be getting, some of the things that he's talked about, we really need consultant help on. I'm gonna visit with him and negotiate some type of agreement, because we're gonna need some help to complete this. No, we're not experts in this. And he's got some ideas, some of these things to finish what Randy talked about, as far as the temperature for the processing, so what size HVAC that they can start, start engineering, and some, but he's got other things that this place may need, that we may need to bring up with a new operator. Maybe some costs that they need to, so I'm going to visit with him, try to get, negotiate an agreement where I can bring to y'all and say, look, I need to hire this guy for this much. So, and that was just to finish where we are with, and in addition, we have equipment that's sitting there that needs to be installed. I'm working with a general contractor to get an agreement in place for him to actually install it. We don't have that in place yet. And so we need help, and I may be seeking a general contractor agreement with Sam East to finish that. They're on site. So, that's the status, and that's where we are, and here, that's the schedule for the next month, is to get those things in place.
I have a question. Daryl, would it be possible, see, we went out and we brought a prospective new tenant out there who said, I can't make a proposal until everything's in there and I can see that it works. Because right now you can't get the ice from the ice house to the boat. It's not finished yet. And so our concern is that CDBG is giving us this deadline of May. Can we get that extended on the basis that we've lost our tenant so that we have time? See, we're still taking bids on these three things to where we don't have to ask for proposals until all the stuff is installed.
No, from a timeline standpoint, there are some concerns there.
Yeah.
Some of this equipment can get installed pretty quickly.
Yeah.
That's why some of these agreements I need to get in place. But we will be working, if we're seeing that it's not going to go, May 1st isn't reasonable,
Right.
we will be talking to the state to try to get that.
Because I don't think it needs much, but I don't think we're gonna be able to get firm proposals unless the equipment is operational when they make their
In addition to what
proposals.
you're saying, we're trying to get this in place for those potential operators to be able to see. So that's why there's gonna be expedited nature with Yes.
Okay, and y'all have, you've already given the president authority to sign the termination of lease agreement, which,
Yes, yeah, that's been done.
okay.
So that's Cameron Fisheries to this point, that's, you know, so.
To that same subject too, as far as timeframe, you know, I think what we can work to, as far as Mr. Minville and his concerns are, is to try to get as much of this bid and under contract. You know, not necessarily have to be finished, but have the money dedicated to those certain projects or equipment or whatever. And that's what we're gonna work to try to get that as quickly as possible.
Yeah, the main thing is gonna be the procurement procedure for the HVAC, you know, that's like, you know, you gotta go through the advertisement and all that. They gotta get a chance to get it procured and, get it engineered, where we know what to actually procure, so that's, you know, other than that, we can get through pretty quick.
Y'all have any other questions on that? Okay, next, the courthouse. As most of you can tell, walking through it and looking at it, it's probably nearly complete with the exception of the wood panels in the courtroom and punch list. We have done a punch list, issued that to the contractor, and as late as yesterday, they gave me a delivery date for the panels for the courtroom, March the 16th. And they're saying it'll take 2 to 3 weeks to install the panels. So you look, and if all of that happens, and it does get here, you look at the first week in April that the courtroom would be complete. And we could probably at that point give a substantial completion and try to wrap this thing up. It's you know, the long lead time or whatever caused the delay on the panels is really, you know, holding things up. Until then, we're, because of the dollar amount of the panels and where the contractor is with this pay request, you know, we're not going to be approving any more pay requests until a majority of that, first of all, those panels get on site and the majority of the work gets done, probably early next month. If that all falls in place, then we would consider, you know, moving the pay request forward. So, otherwise, you know, we're gonna stay on to complete their punch list items, and try to be ready for when the panels are complete to issue that substantial. Anybody have any questions on forecast? Very good. If you do have any questions.
Now, just to update, we do have a change order on the agenda for the courthouse. That is one that, you know, that was about the courtroom, the sound system, so the AV, audio visual controls. So that's on the agenda for y'all's approval. To give y'all a update, Ms. Susan Rocca is here, to talk about to date, you know, in change orders, we've had an additional $155,000 with this change order today. We have furniture ordered up to $245,000 in additional cost, but there are, I'm saying, about $84,000 in additional items that will be needed to complete this project. And that's in Sheffield, but Ms. Susan, I'm gonna let Ms. Susan talk about shelving needs for the courthouse as they start transitioning back over here. You know, this is, so can you address on shelving if you know? Yeah, just maybe come sit up here.
Thank you, Randy. Sure.
Up there?
How much is in that budget? In that courthouse deal? I think I'll have enough money.
Courthouse and jail, yeah, I think, we can talk about that this afternoon in the finance meeting, but I think the money's available.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
As you know, we're gonna plan on using the existing shelving, if it can be brought back and the rollers put back in. There seems to be some sort of an issue with that. We have an additional civil and criminal records room in the back of the courthouse, where the jail used to be, right below it, where the sheriff's office was. That needs to be filled in with shelving for the parish records. And also in the conveyance and mortgages, if the existing shelving that is in the multipurpose building cannot be used, we also need additional shelving there.
We can, something we can bring up this afternoon at the finance meeting once we go through it and give you all a budget for that, but see,
Yeah, I assure you that I'm not going shopping. I'm gonna try to do what I can with what's existing, okay? And the statutes have, in the future, made it to where we don't have to keep originals any longer if we do certain things that they mandate. So that's gonna be in the future, in the next 5 years of finite. I know. Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move on to number 5, the Cameron Ferry Deal Grant.
Okay, we, last year we turned in the grant for the replacement of Cameron Ferry number 2, and not to rehash, what we've gone through to this point. It looks as though there's going to be another notice of fund availability come out for a similar program to what we submitted last year. What we've realized in our debriefings with some of the United States Department of Transportation staff is there are some deficiencies and maybe some issues in the way we worded some sections of the grant. And after the debriefing, we had a discussion, Daryl had a discussion with Robert Mariner, who is a retired employee of the United States Department of Transportation, and he is a consultant now on similar applications. And so what we wanted to do was just bring it to your attention that there will be a possibility for another round of funding, and that we have 700 pages worth of an application already done. But if it was okay with the jury, the staff could work with Mr. Mariner to tidy up the application just to get it in as ideal, a fashion as we could to be that much more competitive. What we've learned in, these grant programs is that it's a foreign language, and if you say the right word or the wrong word, you're either really good or really bad. And so if we have someone who knows how to word things properly and highlight certain things and not highlight things that maybe we didn't know, what we would like is for the jury just to give us a general idea that this is something that we should look into, getting a proposal from him, just to come back to you with the costs, to show that, to show the public that, look, we're still trying to improve this application and we're trying to get a professional involved to tidy up some aspects of the application. It wouldn't be a wholesale redevelopment type thing, just tweak certain sections of the criteria.
You need us to approve that, or for them?
It was just really a status update and to make sure there were no objections to us just seeking out proposals on that.
Anything to get the ferry a bit better.
it's a competitive process, and with Ryan, with this, he did the majority of that application, he did all that. And, so we're gonna need to make it even more competitive in the future, future applications.
Just to tidy that up, shouldn't cost more than $100, so.
That's what I think.
Yeah, that's what those guys are.
I think you're right in the ballpark. Give or take another.
Or so.
Yeah, generally speaking.
Everybody agree with that? All right, let's go to number 6, the Cameron Boat Launch.
Gentlemen, in your packets, we talked about this last month. In preparation with the Venture Global LNG project and the CEA agreement with Venture Global to build the marina and the boat launch and restaurant. With the closure of the road, we're gonna lose access to the boat launch down Jetty Road. So We have approached the landowner as the boat launch, and we have a agreement, as we talked about last month, you know, to enter a lease with him for temporary access, temporary boat launch access in Cameron. That agreement's there, we talked about, is 3 years, $5,000 a month. I put together a budget that you're seeing basically to do this, enter the agreement, get the appraisal that we will need for dredging and just to maintain the grounds, put together a budget of $230,000. So, that's what we have. So, if we agree to do it, if y'all agree to do it, we would have to add this to the agenda to enter, to get an appraisal and enter a lease with the landowner. So, there it is.
Well, we can get that from that $1 million, not come back, we can get that from that $1 million we got from Venture.
That's what we talked about last month.
But that's the only one we got.
Can y'all ever consider maybe talking to Venture and seeing, because they're supposed to supply us with boat launch, right?
Right.
Maybe see if they can help out with some of this cost?
Well,
What they did?
they're gonna fund the construction of the permanent boat launch.
Yeah, but they all
And
have
that's
some
a-
liability of actually paying for some of the cost of the temporary one because they're shutting down on our temporary one.
Right, and,
I don't know over there about it.
Oh.
I don't know.
Yeah, this is Miss Jessica Wickett. She is with Venture, so I'll let her address some of these
Good
issues.
morning. So we did a bunch of research to see about having a temporary boat launch on the 58 acres where we're going to develop the marina and restaurant and RV facilities. And the reason, so in our research, we found that we have to go through the whole 408 sort of a joint permit application process, and that permitting timeline to be able to build a boat launch there is going to last up to a year, and then we would have to start construction. So there really isn't a temporary fix that we could figure out on the 58 acres. So what we're going to do is fast track that the plans and permitting for what will be the permanent boat launch with a dock and a bulkhead, and then move as fast as we can to permit and build that and have that open, just prioritize that. But I think it'll be at least a year until we can move on that based on permitting with 42 years.
She looked about a year out, about
And that,
a year.
and our lease is gonna be, negotiable to end at any time?
3 years.
What got the whole?
3 years, 3 years, 3-year lease.
That's all you could negotiate,
Yes, sir.
even though we don't need it?
Yes, sir.
You can't do a 1-year lease, or an option for 2 1-year leases?
Then 3 years, don't come back.
Who said that?
The landowner.
Landowner said that? Boy, that's a good neighbor in Cameron.
No, I mean, it's waterfront property. I guess if he owns the property, is it? I mean, even, you know, this is the.
But we do have an alternate place for them to be able to launch the fishermen.
Yeah.
You're talking about on the ferry, across the ferry boat.
Has to be the alternate place for them to launch.
Yeah, but they got an alternate boat launch across the ferry, right?
Yeah, but reason, across the ferry, that's the reason we was looking at doing this, in case the ferry broke down, or just different things.
That was the same thing with those people in Holly Beach, when we had to shut the boat launch over there. I just wanted to think that,
Are they willing to help with any, grounds and maintenance?
no, it's not like to me.
We're gonna take over their whole lease and
They
fix
want
their
their $180,000.
dock and the launch and then.
Make it usable.
Right, and then at the end of 3 years, they want to have a boat launch.
I mean, mean, I don't think there's a lot of work that needs to be done, you know, for that, I think there. But, yeah, as of right now, yes, they would, whatever we do to the dock, that's how we'll leave.
I mean, they're willing to lease it to us for 3 years only, but they're not willing to fix it to our needs, basically.
This is the option.
And, construction costs.
That's what I'm looking at, and then we got to dredge.
Look, those are estimates. We got a cost for the dredging was up to 15,000. Depends on what he needs to do to actually dredge that out. It could be 6,000. The grounds, that was just limestone and whatever that do the pier. We had kind of got an estimate. I put in just a budget figure, 30,000. It might not cost that.
We're not manning this at all, right?
No,
No security, nothing.
no. Just,
Nobody's using that facility? Nobody?
no.
I know the sheriff's department did at one time.
The Marine
At one
Department
time.
used
Marine
it,
department at one
yes,
time.
yes.
Is there any inspection certification needs to be done before we can actually, for liability? We have to have insurance.
Oh, it'd be
We
interesting.
have to have inspection.
It would be interesting. We'd add it to our insurance.
So that's an additional cost.
Just liability.
Well, you had
It would just be added to the liability policy.
It's added
We're not
to
gonna
the
insure
existing
we're not insuring the place, we would just have liability.
So
It's
we're
not
gonna pay
significant cost.
$30,000 to inconvenience, not provide a boat launch. We got a boat launch they could go to, but for a year.
3 years.
3 years.
No. The lady told me we're gonna have a boat launch in about a year.
They're speculating it'll be ready in a year,
Yeah, it don't matter.
but you gotta take this for 3 years.
That's what I'm saying.
So what do you want to do? You want to do it?
I mean, I come to David, if he thinks he needs it, we would go with it.
Yeah, that's a
Fairly
yeah,
reliable,
yeah.
but it's not reliable. It won't run in the fall, it won't run at 1.45.
Okay, I got a call here from Mr. Leo Dyson about the boat launch.
Okay, about this boat launch, have any of you ever used that boat launch that's right here? I have. Your trailer falls off into a hole, you can't hardly pull it out. Given $100 a month for that boat launch would be getting ripped off. I say we just try to find something else and let everybody do what they can. I have a boat launch at my place that needs a little bit of shell that I could fix up for the boats that sell to me. That property, in my opinion, is not worth what you're gonna pay for 3 years, you know? Like, it's just, sounds like a brother-in-law deal that, you know, somebody needs to make a little bit of money. And I don't think you should even consider that place as a boat launch. The ferry, there's one on the other side of the ferry, but everybody knows what the ferry has been, you know, going on. It's possible you can bring your boat on the other side of the ferry, and then when you get in from work, you know, people oyster and shrimp with outboards here, and sports fishermen, and whoever, he'll have to go all the way around the Lake Charles to get back to where he was 1 mile ago. You know, and I you know, that's a problem too, but I think we can deal with that easier than we can spending all this money on someone else's property. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
And then, Mr. Leo, before you leave, stay right there, please. You said you got a boat launch in your facility?
Yes, I have a boat launch there.
Where's that facility at?
Right here out of town, it's,
I'm just asking you a question.
almost to the ferry on that curve.
And it's a good boat?
I'm only gonna be there till the end of April, but,
Okay, all right.
yeah.
Okay, all right.
But, there's a few other places in Cameron, Mr. Terry Piku over here on Luke Henry's property right there, he has a boat launch. I would go ahead and take this money and start building a permanent boat launch. And you'll help the community better by doing that instead of helping just one person that's trying to make money.
Thank you, sir.
Well, when we started this, we were looking for a place to help, help the commercial fishermen out. I mean, if it's not gonna help them out, then it don't do us no good to spend the money on the thing. I mean, that was the original thought of all of us, was to get them an alternate route from going across to that ferry over there, but if that's not a problem with them to sweat it out for a year or so till we get one built, then we just soon keep our money in our pocket and go from there. I think everybody.
Because really, our concern was our commercial people.
Yeah, that's what
And
we
it wasn't really the recreational people, they had just, that was,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
They had to wait and
No, just, I mean, not to belabor it, this was just an option to do just what y'all said. I mean, you know, I just wanna, this wasn't, you know, so, it's good.
So we, y'all in agreement, we want to just sit back and wait and see, let Venture build their launch and go on there.
They should be hearing that, Dave. Yeah. Because, I've been to that document, it's got. All right.
All right.
Just don't worry about it. Thank y'all for the work, though, staff.
All right, good deal. Well, we'll just track can that idea and move on. Let's go to number 7, Davy Doxey, supplement pay for registrar of voters employees.
Yeah, Christie's been working there 4 years, and it kind of falls in the cracks. And she's not the step program, and she's actually $1,200 a supplement pay a year, comes out to $46 a check. It's not that much, but she hasn't had a raise in 4 years. And just asking how, you could do that for us.
Yeah, like I said, Michelle Richard has sent a letter recommending that, you can see that on
And Mrs. Doxey, when she took that job, she had to resign from other positions like doing books for Waterworks or something like that. So she was out that money by accepting that job as well.
But it's been 4 years.
Now, yeah, but we have employees here, it's been a while too, without raises, so. I understand.
Should we be something we look at the finance?
Yeah, that's fine, we can take it up then.
Okay. We'll look at it then. Number 8 been canceled. So let's move to number 9.
On that note, guys, shouldn't we inform the staff that somewhere in the future to come up with a policy for this trash issue, and put in place for us to look at down the road? How we gonna handle our garbage in the future?
We're talking about water,
I'm talking about just a policy in place of how we're gonna handle cans versus
I thought we had that in place. I thought we had a minute saying if you checked into the minutes, it was one time for cans, and once we run out, we was out. If your can got run over, you had to fix it yourself or buy you a new one.
Is that all part of the policy?
I think that was our policy.
That was probably part of the agenda, the minutes of the topics of that one-time purchase. I'm talking about for all the garbage department. Is there a policy in place of how we handle garbage in general? We got a big old department, garbage is a big department, a big bunch of money, and we have no policy that dictates how we're gonna do garbage, handle garbage.
You want us to, we can develop one, we can start working on it, Emily and I, and
Well, I
present
mean,
it
that
to
would be a
you.
good thing to have in the future so that we have issues come arise, we got a policy for it. And at some point, we develop a policy, and at some point, it needs to be updated or whatever, do that. It just saves a lot of headache of doing something a year and a half ago and trying to think about how we said we're gonna do it versus what is fair for everybody.
That would be negotiated in their contract, though, wouldn't it? Anytime we do a contract, instead of a,
No, I'm talking about,
Policy.
I'm just talking about policy for as maybe how the dumps work, how the garbage pickup works, how the trash cans work, set aside from the contract of pickup garbage. You follow me? That would be set in place in the contract that you would have to negotiate at the
that would
time.
be negotiated at the time of the.
You're talking about just doing the receivers.
procedures, policies and
Right, right.
procedures,
Policy.
who gets a can, who has to pay for one, who's eligible to get
Exactly.
everything.
Exactly.
Dump sites, you know, we're talking about everything, you know, so.
Right. I mean, just a policy we can adopt that says, spells out how we gonna handle everything to do with garbage in the future. If you can breaks or you get stole, guess what? Our policy says you gotta go purchase a new can from the provider, not from the parish. We're not in the trash can that's provided. It'll be for all what's set in the future, for the future. So there's no, I don't know what was said exactly and this and that.
Is that addressed in the building permitting system? Where if you go get a permit, you don't, you're not required to get a can? Is that something maybe we should consider?
I don't know.
I think we'll review it when we develop this policy, that's what y'all, you know, we need.
Well, when we bought them and sold them, and gave them away, there was no commercial. Even for the church, I had to buy one for the Methodist, Wise Methodist Church. I had to buy that for the church, because they wouldn't give me commercial. Now, if we pick up, the 30 houses and the 2 little trailer parks and wherever they got commercial at, just take the cans back, then it would be no commercial. But like we said at the beginning, no commercial.
Well, I know I'm almost positive in Grand Lake, we got trailer parks that's got trash cans. And they're pretty much no different than these RV parks. To be
Well,
truthful,
yeah,
some of them are residents and some of them are campers, full of
They buy
campers.
them?
No, I don't know how we handle that, I think we might have given it
Mine's
to
still sitting there, I ain't never picked mine up
Well, that's commercial, though, if they're renting a slot, somebody's making money off that, that's commercial.
That's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
that for in the future, we need a policy that's gonna say, well, how we gonna handle our business when it comes to garbage.
All
So
that
that
is-
we're fair to everybody in the whole parish, how we gonna handle every part of the parish. I think it'd be a good thing for us to invest in.
Give us the opportunity to produce something for y'all to review, and we can get started, you know, on that.
Work on something to get back
And-
with us.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
that's all I want to do.
No, I mean, I think it makes sense, I think we're all in agreement. We'll start working on something and get that to y'all.
All right,
It's pretty much,
That'll work.
for now, we're gonna just handle it like we've been handling.
yeah, that'll work.
But this would be for something that after we adopt.
Yes,
All
sir.
right. Let's move to number 9, administrative transition planning. Mr. Booyah.
Okay, guys, well, we are here. Lee didn't think I was gonna last this long, but I proved him wrong, for probably a variety of reasons. But, you know, it's not a secret that, I will be leaving my post. I think that what I would like to ask of the jury is, you know, give your staff a little bit of time to prove their value, prove their capability to you. I think that the way we have fashioned the department heads and how they individually handle their own business and their own employees and calls from the public and concerns of you, I think that there will be a seamless transition. The whole time I've been here, my goal has been to make me the most replaceable person in the office. And so I think we're gonna get close to that. I really do. I don't think that the staff is gonna miss a beat. After sitting down with the department heads, we looked at where we felt there may be a gap. And we've discussed, and they're gonna need your approval and guidance over what's been discussed on how to delegate certain tasks to certain department heads that are relevant to them and what they could do very well. But I think we're gonna have a gap in the coastal restoration side. And that's something I think that, this parish has always been involved in coastal efforts. And we have continued on, I feel, what Ms. Tina was very successful in getting started, that coastal program. And we have a say in a lot of areas where we didn't maybe before. And so I think that it's something, I know we've tried very hard to not fill a lot of positions when they become vacant. And we've tried to, separate that throughout the staff. But I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't say I think someone needs to be dedicated to those duties. I feel that they are so important. Other parishes are gonna have a representative that's their only job at all of those meetings in Baton Rouge, in DC, in Lake Charles, in New Orleans, so forth and so on. I think if you find a position and a person who has capacity to handle the coastal side and also assist the staff with other items, projects and grants and so forth and so on, I think you can cover a lot of your bases. And so what I would like to humbly recommend is that you allow the department heads to show you their value, but at the same time consider approving a temporary classification for a director of coastal affairs, someone that could handle a lot attendance at a lot of those meetings. If you're not there, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And it's just a fact. And so in the personnel policy, there is a section that allows for temporary classifications, and you'll be able to say how temporary that classification would be and set up the pay scale. And I think you're going to have some people that are going to be very interested. And so that's not an agenda item anywhere. That is unsolicited advice from me, or an opinion, unsolicited opinion from me. I have fought with this. And when my family and all of you decided that we were going to run, and we were going to try like hell, we knew this day might come. Didn't think we'd get 94% of Cameron, though, I'll tell you that. I'm very proud of that, more proud of that than anything. But since I've come back here in 2008, and those individuals that trusted me back then, I think we've had some good times, and we've had some hard times. I visited with you all after I lost my grandpa, or y'all lost a son, or a wife, and we are family. And that's not going to change just because I won't be the administrator. But I got to tell you, the first people that I showed my engagement ring to my wife to were parish employees. The women were so excited to see that. My daughters come here from time to time. They color with the staff. They are all excited to see everybody, even Mary sometimes. I want to say thank you from me and my family, and I want to thank Megan for letting me come back. In 2012, she knew it wasn't going to be easy on us, but she knew where my heart was. And, I never got to finish the speech that I was given the night that we interviewed back in November of 2012 because the chairman at the time cut me off. And I don't think he's going to cut me off right now. So I'm gonna go back to that because I didn't know what else to say to wrap this thing up. You can talk about the projects, you can talk about the progress we made as a staff and the cost that we've cut and just whatever you want to talk about. At the end of the day, it's about relationships. It's about what we've meant to one another. But I'll tell you this, when I interviewed that night, I said, "But we all want Cameron to succeed. We're at a trying time in our parish's history, and together you and I will succeed. Failure is not an option. And as your administrator, my goals will be threefold. Number one, to help adjust the taxing structure of the parish to be more conducive to business while also marketing Cameron better to others. And by this, I mean exploring industries and other opportunities to complement our existing oil and gas and fishing industries. We need to diversify our economic base, and I mentioned one of those examples being eco or nature-based tourism. I think with the Creole Nature Trail and 500,000 people driving through this parish every year, I think we're pulling some of that off. Not because of us, but it's still happening in the parish. We wished it for the parish. Second, to fight for the valuable funds to protect and restore our coastline and marshes. I think we've absolutely done that. And I think we have exceeded our expectations in every single way possible. And third, I wanted to be a representative of Cameron that made you and the residents proud. And good Lord willing, I think we may have pulled 2 out of the 3 off. Anyway, so I guess I appreciate you giving me a little bit of time to work through all that. I'm not going away, unfortunately for you and the staff. You're still going to see me. You're still going to have to deal with me. You're still going to have to put up with phone calls from me. But I want to say thank you. This has been the most rewarding quarter of my life. I mean, I spent 9 years of my life with this organization, and I'm very proud of everything we've been able to accomplish together. And honestly, I'm gonna miss it. I am. So I hope the good Lord blesses all of y'all and your families, and keep me and my family in your prayers, because this is harder for us than you think. And I love y'all. Thank you.
We're gonna miss you too.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
can I speak for a minute?
You sure can.
All right. Ryan, back in 12, whenever you started talking to you, you was green, real green. You worked for the parish, but you were still green coming into the position you were in. But what makes me feel good today is looking at you start back then, build up to where you are today. I feel like you went through another college and you got to where you are today. And I don't think it would have ever happened in this way unless you come back here. And you did what you did. You were in the parish, you was in Baton Rouge, you was in DC, you fought countless amount of hours. But it makes me feel good to see a local like yourself going to Baton Rouge and being our next governor in a few more years.
Don't wish that on anybody.
But it's just, you know, it's like, I use softball or baseball or whatever, but you take a young kid and you teach them the basics, and then they move on. And you start thinking back, well, I coached some of these girls, and I watched them move on to fast pitch. I watched them go to college. It had to start somewhere, and that was you. You started back then at Minville, you ended up here, and yes, we had to pull your eye teeth out to get you to come in, but you did, and I'm very proud of you on that, and for what you've done for this parish over the last 6 years, 7 years. And I don't know about you guys, but just myself, I'm happy to see you where you're at and the position you're taking on today. Thank you very much.
Remember one thing, what old people used to say.
Load the wagon.
Load the wagon, boy, I'll pull it.
All right, let's go to number 10, review your agendas.
Hey, Joe. I didn't fill out a comment card, but would it be, take two seconds out of y'all time?
Go ahead.
Oh, your 2 seconds is up.
I won't fast.
He didn't fill out a comment card for the.
I'll fill one out, though. I'll look for one in the back, by the way, I didn't see it. Chad Corville, land manager for Miami Corporation. I just wanted to express to you guys, and you all know my feelings about Ryan and his abilities. And it's been an absolute pleasure to work with you, Ryan. I look forward to working with you in your role with Baton Rouge. And the representation you guys are gonna have, as well as the rest of the district, including the folks over in Adjeville, I think that they're gonna be represented by one of the finest individuals I've ever had the pleasure of working with. So Ryan, on behalf of Miami Corporation, I suspect I speak for most landowners in Cameron Parish. It has been an absolute pleasure. Appreciate what you have done in helping us be good neighbors in Cameron Parish and restore coastal Louisiana amongst all the other things we've done. But again, thanks. It's been a pleasure. I look forward to working with you in your new role. Thank you.
Chad, you can stay right there, but these 3 permits this is all existing canals, y'all just cleaning?
Yeah, you want me to go up to the mic?
Yes, sir.
Still looking for the card, by the way, but, yeah, it's the same thing we have to do. It's the same Ternos permit you guys have seen probably for the last 20 years. The way the Corps and DNR make you do it is every 5 years you gotta get reauthorized. So it's the same thing you guys have seen for your entire career. You're gonna see it 5 years from now, and you'll see it 5 years from now. It's a stupid process. You all have an appreciation for how ridiculous the permit process can be, but that's what it is. It's the exact same authorization. I actually just scratch out whatever year I filed the application, and I change the date. So it's the exact same thing you've always seen.
Cameron Creel's trying to go to that. So you won't have to get an application. I mean, you can dig when you need to dig.
Right,
5 years.
and congratulations to Mr. Doxey and his efforts and those efforts of the gravity drainage districts. Frankly, for all of Cameron Parish, every gravity drainage district ought to try and do the same thing, but unfortunately, every 5 years, you're gonna have to resubmit. What you don't wanna do is allow that to lapse.
Right.
Because then you got a whole suite of issues to deal with.
Okay, thank you.
I had one thing, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to talk about. Almost forgot about it.
Go ahead.
I wanna reduce the speed limit on a road in Grand Lake where we're building a public boat launch. There's a little road, the public road that comes into the boat launch. It's at 15 miles an hour and it goes through a trailer park. And I'd like to reduce that speed to 5 miles an hour through there. And I think that, I talked to the owner of the park and he would greatly appreciate it. That there's gonna be an increased volume of traffic down that road going through the park. And I just feel like it needs to be reduced so that no one
I
gets
think-
hurt and stuff.
If we do reduce speed limits, we do it just one time a year, don't we?
I talked
Yeah, we haven't done one in a while, but.
I talked to him and it was like, it's been like,
27.
yeah, a year or over.
Yeah, But I mean, we made it, didn't we talk about it one time before, because it costs to do this every time we do the reduce the speed?
6 months
Or every 6 months or a year, we want to do them all at one time?
We had talked about doing them like in October of the
Yeah,
year,
at the end of the
but,
year.
I mean, honestly, Mr. Joe, we hadn't done one so that's up to y'all. I mean, if y'all wanna add it, it's an informal policy. If y'all feel the need, y'all have the right to do that, that's up to y'all, however y'all wanna do it.
I just wanna get the process started so that when the park, when the boat launch is open, that traffic going through there at least. You know, and then some of them gonna speed. You know, but it ain't the road ain't but not even a quarter of a mile long. It's a short road.
As rough as that road is, how do they go more than 1 mile an hour?
Yeah, but we're gonna try to overlay that. But, if we got some funds left from that boat.
Yeah.
Whatever, you want to move it forward.
I do.
Move it forward, yeah.
Yes, sir. Just need to, yeah, we'll get that for the animal.
Gotta move it forward. For her support.
Yeah. I got a card here for Renee.
That's-
I'm gonna see her last name. Dog.
Esther Ray is with Fenster Maker.
Okay, yeah. All right.
By the way, I have trouble pronouncing my name sometimes too. I don't know if my parents
There you
gave me
go.
that. Renee Escalade with CH Fenster Maker. I have the great privilege of being business development for our company and also being a philanthropist. And I would be remiss not to echo Chad Corville's comments about Ryan and the whole Cameron Parish Police Jury staff and the jurors. I have the utmost confidence that that y'all will see great things to come. And I just wanted to thank him for all of the efforts that he's made, and to the jury for putting him in that position, and for his employees for supporting him the way that y'all have. Congratulations.
Now, before the meeting's over, with, I'd like to thank the lady in the back from Venture Global for coming up.
Everybody good with this agenda? Everybody good?
Yeah, let me just, we're gonna add on the speed limit, we'll bring up some other items at the finance meeting, so, right now, that's all we have.
Okay.
Miles on page, Riley Limon, I care about this everyone. Drainage board's okay with him, Dan? About levies? Any
Actually,
drainages?
the drainage, it's gonna be tabled until drainage board approves
Oh,
it.
okay.
So, yes, sir.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Everybody good? Everybody good? Daryl, Ryan, good?
Good?
Good. Any adjourned?